Greetings, fellow cultivators. Welcome to Autonova. Remember to like and subscribe to support the journey. Now, let's dive into the next chapter of A Will Eternal. Big Fatty Zhang was a bit taken aback. He looked at Bai Xiaochun, then looked around them at the swamp, a strange expression on his face. As far as he was concerned, only an idiot would believe what Bai Xiaochun had just said. After all, he knew Bai Xiaochun well, and was used to how he would brag and try to show off. And yet, that same understanding of Bai Xiaochun also caused him to hesitate for a moment. Although Xiaochun does like to brag, he thought, he doesn't usually exaggerate things too much. Could it really be true that all the weird bugs and things in the swamp will avoid us? After a moment of hesitation, he sent some divine sense out, and was shocked to find that there wasn't a single life force fluctuation in the area. To Bai Xiaochun's pleasure, the two of them proceeded forward through the swamp, with Big Fatty Zhang feeling more shaken with every moment. Before long, he sensed a flicker of life force up ahead. However, as soon as he detected it, it raced away in the opposite direction. After that same thing happened a few times, he looked over at Bai Xiaochun, a strange expression on his face. What do you think, eldest brother? It's like I said, I gave them all a strict warning. HMMMPHH. How dare they ambush my eldest brother? It was a kindness on my part to hold back from wiping out the entire swamp. Bai Xiaochun felt prouder of himself with every moment that passed. Although the Godkiller technique was somewhat perverse, it was very effective. That was just how Bai Xiaochun was. No matter what situation he found himself in, he could always find the bright side. To Big Fatty Zhang's continued shock, the two of them proceeded along through the swamp as smoothly as if it were their own front yard. Everything was quiet, to the point where Big Fatty Zhang even began to daydream a bit here and there. At one point, a leech didn't flee in timely fashion, and Big Fatty Zhang managed to grab it. Being so close to Bai Xiaochun caused the leech to let out a shriek of despair, and it even seemed to be pleading for its life. When Big Fatty Zhang relaxed his hand, it whooshed away, vanishing in the blink of an eye. They also ran into another spider, the same type which had ambushed Big Fatty Zhang earlier. As soon as the spider saw Bai Xiaochun, it shivered and fled in the opposite direction. Not even Bai Xiaochun could ever have guessed that the creatures in the swamp would end up so terrified of him. Could it be that, because of some strange quality of the swamp, when I was unconscious, I let out even more of that blood mist than I realized was possible? Eventually, he came to the conclusion that this must be the case. He actually had no idea how much life force he had absorbed, but the fact that it was enough to reform a drop of undying blood was terrifying to think about. Thankfully, Master Cloud Lightning had been frightened so badly that he fled. A craftier opponent might have taken advantage of that moment of unconsciousness to attack him. One of the most exaggerated things to unfold in the swamp after the main incident was when they happened across a pack of gaunt wolves that were relying on their incredible speed and dexterity to harass a cultivator. That cultivator happened to be Sun Wu from the Dragon Totem Ghost Sea sect. Cultivators from the south were adept at shapeshifting, and at the moment, the green-skinned Sun Wu was using that ability to full effect. Occasionally, he would change into the shape of a vicious, brown centipede that would weave in and out of the attacking wolves. No matter what he did, however, he couldn't escape the more than 1,000 wolves, who kept him completely surrounded. Visible in the area were a few dead cultivators, which bore testimony to how long the fighting had been going on. Off to the side was the leader of the pack, a wolf who was little more than a skeleton, with cold, sneering eyes, and energy comparable to a diva. Sun Wu was already sinking into despair, and was fairly convinced that he wouldn't be able to escape from this calamity. From what he could tell, the only reason the wolves hadn't killed him already was in the hopes of using him to lure out more prey. He knew that unless a diva came to rescue him, nobody would be able to help him. He was going to die one way or another, and furthermore, was not the type of person who would violate his own principles simply to save his life. Therefore, he was shifting in and out of centipede form in the hopes that the shape-shifting fluctuations would serve as a warning to any other cultivators in the area. As soon as Bai Xiaochun and Big Fatty Zhang approached, the wolves began to shiver and howl. Then, the entire pack of 1,000 turned and fled with their tails between their legs. The leader of the pack was the first to start running, and moved especially quickly. However, before it could get very far, Bai Xiaochun's voice rang out sonorously. "Stay. The rest can go, but you stay." The rest of the wolves vanished into the swamp. In the blink of an eye, only one wolf out of 1,000 was left behind. That wolf stood there trembling, the cold arrogance in its eyes replaced by fear. However, it didn't dare to flee, and instead dropped down onto its belly and tried its best to wag its tail. Big Fatty Zhang was used to scenes such as this, but Sun Wu was completely stunned. Panting, he looked over at Bai Xiaochun and almost immediately recognized him. Even still, he was shocked. Although it made sense for a diva to be able to scare the wolves away, it was completely astonishing that a single word could cause the leader of the pack to not only refrain from fleeing, but also to grovel on the ground. Filled with gratitude at having just been rescued, Sun Wu hurried over to Bai Xiaochun, clasped hands, and bowed deeply. Many thanks for saving my life, Senior Bai. Bai Xiaochun cleared his throat. He had begun to feel a bit awkward showing off constantly for Big Fatty Zhang, so now that he had someone new to work with, he definitely had to make a good impression. Therefore, he made a beckoning motion with his right hand, prompting the shivering wolf to hurry over in front of him. The wolf didn't do anything at all when Bai Xiaochun bopped it on the head. It even wagged its tail vigorously. Sun Wu's jaw dropped in exaggerated fashion. He was almost incapable of reconciling the image of the tail-wagging wolf with the cruel and vicious beast he had seen earlier. They didn't seem like the same creature. Bai Xiaochun looked around at the surrounding corpses and found that none were Eastern cultivators. Therefore, he snorted and said, "I'll spare your life this time." The wolf shivered, although it was impossible to tell whether it was from fear or joy. It gave a few whimpers, then turned and fled into the swamp. Having driven off the wolves, Bai Xiaochun turned to Sun Wu, who shivered and once again bowed formally. Off to the side, Big Fatty Zhang cleared his throat, looked at Sun Wu, and then looked back at Bai Xiaochun. "You're from the south?" Bai Xiaochun asked. "Yes indeed, sir. I'm from the Dragon Totem Ghost Sea Sect." Bai Xiaochun thought back to Master Thousand Ghost, whom he had defeated with a single stare. He nodded. "Very well. You can follow me out of the swamp if you'd like." Sun Wu was overjoyed. So far, the swamp had been a nightmare for him, so as far as he was concerned, being able to join Bai Xiaochun was a stroke of good fortune. Bowing incessantly, he said, "Many thanks, Senior Bai." Laughing heartily, Big Fatty Zhang hurried over and lifted him up from his bowing. "We must be connected by destiny," he said with a smile. Come, why don't you tell us how you Southerners have been doing in this trial by fire?" Big Fatty Zhang was very curious about the South, and Sun Wu was very eager to speak. Other than confidential matters, he was very free with his words. After going on for a bit, his expression suddenly flickered. "Oh, I just remembered something. 3 days ago, I saw an Eastern cultivator trapped in a dangerous location. Although I wished I could save him, not even I dared to get too close. I think saving him would have required an entire team working together. He called himself Song Ke, and he asked me to tell anyone from the east that he needed help." "Care?" Bai Xiaochun murmured, a look of shock appearing on his face. The trial by fire was made up of 4 separate lands, a desert, a swamp, a plain, and a jungle, each of which was filled with all sorts of hidden dangers. As for how many people remained alive from the 4 rivers, no one knew. By now, it was very obvious to Bai Xiaochun why the requirement to enter the trial by fire was set at the nascent soul stage. Anyone under that level wouldn't even be able to move around. Even nascent soul cultivators faced deadly peril at every turn. For example, Sun Wu was in the great circle of the nascent soul stage, and was considered a top chosen. He was widely viewed as the most likely disciple in his sect to become a diva, and yet he had been placed into a situation of almost certain death at the hands of those wolves. Considering how dangerous the trial by fire was, as soon as Bai Xiaochun heard Sun Wu mention the name Song Ke, and how he had asked for help, he began to pant. Song Ke had always been testy with Bai Xiaochun, and didn't like him very much, but he was his nephew. That was even more the case now that Bai Xiaochun had taken the next step with Song Junwan. If the situation weren't more dire, Bai Xiaochun might have been inclined to pull a prank on him. But this place was too dangerous. Therefore, he immediately asked Sun Wu to take him to the location where he'd seen Song Ke. Sun Wu didn't dare to be deceptive in any way. He immediately told Bai Xiaochun all the details, after which Bai Xiaochun shot in that direction. Sun Wu and Big Fatty Zhang followed along nervously. The 3 of them became bright beams of light that shot through the sky over the swamp. Bai Xiaochun was so nervous, and was moving so quickly, that he left Sun Wu and Big Fatty Zhang behind. About half a day passed, and he was already closing in on the location where Song Ke was trapped. As the fluctuations of his aura spread out into the area, he sent some divine sense out to ascertain the situation. Afterward, he sighed in relief. Care sure is a fortunate child. Sticking his chin up, he mused about how truly lucky Song Ke was. After all, whenever he got into danger, Bai Xiaochun always seemed to come rescue him. Song Ke was currently in a violet pool of water, surrounded by countless floating eyes, each one of which was several meters wide. Shockingly, there were cultivators sealed inside many of the eyes. There were men and women from all four of the river branches, most of them already skeletons, although a few were in a partial state of decomposition. Two of them were still gasping for breath, one of those two being Song Ke. Black tendrils of smoke were wrapped around him, almost like snakes, slowly absorbing him. Thankfully, the Song clan patriarch had given him a legacy treasure from the clan that had kept him alive so far. Without it, he would have long since died. The legacy treasure was a cloak, the soft light of which prevented the black smoke from piercing into his body. It was clearly a fantastic, powerful item, and yet, as time went on, it was clearly being worn down, and the light it emitted was beginning to grow faint. In fact, given the level of Song Q's cultivation base, not even that cloak should have enabled him to hang on this long. However, for some unknown reason, only a few days ago, the eyes had suddenly become much weaker, almost as if they had aged. That had given Song Ke some hope, and had helped him use the power of the cloak to hang on a bit longer. However, he knew that unless someone came to save him, he would not be able to unseal himself and escape. And that meant that he would definitely meet his end eventually. Don't tell me that I, Song Ke, am actually going to perish in this trial by fire, he thought bitterly. Already, his joints were growing stiff, and his cultivation base was beginning to fade. I refuse to give in. I still haven't defeated that damned Bai Xiaochun. I still haven't trampled him beneath my feet. I still haven't had my revenge on him. I survived for year after bitter year in the wildlands. I refuse to believe that a measly trial by fire is going to be the death of me. I, Song Ke, am a person blessed by luck. No matter what deadly crises I've faced in my life, I always come out on top. From chi condensation all the way to the nascent soul stage, it was always like that. I'm not going to die here. Howling, he struggled to free himself until he went blue in the face. That was when he noticed that, all of a sudden, the surrounding eyes were trembling. The eyes who had no cultivators in them blinked in terror, and then turned and vanished into the swamp. The violet pool had once contained so many eyes it was impossible to count them all. But now, 99% of them were gone. The few dozen that remained began to blink rapidly to unseal the cultivators and corpses inside of them, spit them out, and then flee. The eye which held Song Ke seemed particularly hesitant. However, after a moment, Song Ke felt a powerful force gripping him, and he was thrown out into the open. Within moments, the eye which had held him sealed for so many days had vanished into the swamp. Song Ke stood there with a blank expression on his face, looking around in confusion. Everything had happened so quickly that he wasn't really sure how to react. 1 moment ago, the area had been filled with innumerable vicious eyes, but now, not a single one was in sight. It was almost as if the events of recent days had been a dream. Could it be that those eyes can only exist for a certain period of time, after which they vanish? Although he couldn't be sure if his speculation was true, his heart was currently pounding with joy at having escaped certain death. Excited, he began to study his surroundings when, all of a sudden, he looked up into the sky, and his eyes went wide. Much of the spiritual power inside of him had been drained away, but he could still focus enough on his eyes to see very clearly that, there, off in the distance, was Bai Xiaochun, smiling broadly. It was at that point that Bai Xiaochun's voice reached Song Q's ears. Hi, Care. Song Q's expression darkened. Then he saw that 2 people were following Bai Xiaochun, one being Big Fatty Zhang, and the other being Sun Wu, whom Song Ke had previously begged for help. If by this point Song Ke didn't realize why the eyes had vanished, it would have revealed him to be a complete idiot. Therefore, he simply turned to fly away. When Bai Xiaochun saw that Song Ke was flying away, he was not happy at all. How could you be so impolite, Care? I can't believe you didn't even say hello to me. With that, he made a grasping motion, causing Song Q's expression to turn even grimmer as he was grabbed by an invisible force and dragged over to Bai Xiaochun. Upon seeing Bai Xiaochun, Song Ke acted as though he had just caught sight of a diseased animal. That increased Bai Xiaochun's displeasure, and was also a big loss of face, considering that there were other people present. Care, I am a member of the elder generation, and am also your uncle. You know, I'm well within my rights to criticize your actions if I want to. Song Ke was feeling very frustrated and depressed. As far as he was concerned, being captured by those vicious eyes had actually been a lot better than being trapped by Bai Xiaochun. After all, the eyes could inflict physical pain, but Bai Xiaochun inflicted mental torture. And yet, Song Ke didn't say anything. He actually wasn't sure what to say. His action of turning to leave had actually been instinctual. He hadn't put any thought into it whatsoever. He could tell that Bai Xiaochun was displeased, and therefore, he braced himself and prepared to offer an explanation. It was at around this time that Big Fatty Zhang and Sun Wu arrived. Sun Wu didn't seem to notice the awkwardness of the situation, but Big Fatty Zhang knew Song Ke fairly well, and could guess what was going on. He had also heard some of Bai Xiaochun's words. Therefore, his eyes lit up, and he leapt forward. Xiaochun, Care is still just a child. He's always been the filial type, so what happened just now was probably just a misunderstanding. Care, you need to listen to your Uncle Fatty. What you did just now was wrong. Your Uncle Bai came here to save you, and yet you didn't even say hello? Look, I know that you're a good kid. Come offer greetings to your uncle, and then, well, your uncle's close friends are also members of the senior generation. From the look in Big Fatty Zhang's eyes, it was clear that he very much looked forward to what was going to happen next. Song Q's expression turned grimmer as he glared at Big Fatty Zhang. He almost felt like his blood was about to start flowing backwards. For Bai Xiaochun to take advantage of him was one thing, but for Big Fatty Zhang to do the same pushed Song Ke to the point where he felt like his head was about to explode. And then he thought about the possibility that he would have to call all of Bai Xiaochun's friends uncle and aunt, and his mind began to spin. Big Fatty Zhang. Song Q's shout seemed to vent all of his depression and frustration. However, Big Fatty Zhang had simply been too biting, and even though Song Ke didn't want to, he suddenly envisioned himself greeting all of Bai Xiaochun's friends. Uncle Baosai, Uncle Tianyu, Aunt Xiaomei, Uncle God Diviner. As far as Song Ke was concerned, it would be worse than heavenly tribulation. Trembling, he glared with bloodshot eyes, not at Bai Xiaochun, didn't dare to do that, but rather, at Big Fatty Zhang. From the look on his face, if one more wrong word was uttered, he would fly into a rage and attack. Big Fatty Zhang was actually startled by Song Q's shout, and started to get a bit nervous. After all, Song Ke had quite a reputation in the bloodstream sect. However, considering that Bai Xiaochun was standing right there, it didn't seem likely that Song Ke would actually do anything. Besides, Big Fatty Zhang really looked forward to the prospect of being addressed as an uncle. That having been said, he was still surprised at Song Q's reaction to such a small thing. Off to the side, Sun Wu was stunned by what he was seeing. He had no idea of the backstory involved, and only knew that Bai Xiaochun was a diva patriarch. From Sun Wu's perspective, a nascent soul cultivator like Song Ke was a junior to Bai Xiaochun, something completely and utterly natural. No wonder Senior Bai was so anxious to get over here. As it turns out, his Taoist partner is fellow Taoist Song's aunt. Considering that, Sun Wu also felt that Song Ke was acting a bit disrespectfully. Senior Bai hurried over here as quickly as he could to save Song Ke, who didn't even offer greetings. And then he just turned to leave? No wonder Senior Bai is angry. Although Big Fatty Zhang's demands had seemed a bit excessive, Sun Wu could still understand them. Finally, he put a warm smile onto his face, looked at Song Ke, and said, "You did well to put your trust in me, fellow Taoist Song. Clearly, the heavens have blessed you. Who would have thought that you were so close to the exalted Senior Bai? I can only be envious of the fact that you are a junior to him." Song Ke wished he could say something, but couldn't think of anything to say. Big Fatty Zhang was trying to take advantage of him, and Sun Wu was making it worse. Although he wanted to start arguing, the truth was that Sun Wu really had saved his life. Song Q's frustrations built and built, until he felt like he was about to go crazy. Finally, he simply threw back his head and howled at the top of his lungs. As he did, Bai Xiaochun sighed. To see Song Ke acting this way actually left Bai Xiaochun feeling a bit bad. Alright, Big Fatty Zhang. Leave Care alone. The child has had it very rough. Care, you shouldn't be going around alone. Come with me, alright? It will be a lot safer that way. Song Ke felt like crying when he heard that. Bai Xiaochun's words had touched directly on the most sensitive part of his heart. In the face of such bald-faced provocation from Big Fatty Zhang, it was very moving to see Bai Xiaochun being so kind. However, even in the moment that his gratitude swelled, Bai Xiaochun looked over and said something that ruined everything. Calm down, Care. Be a good boy, now. I'm not going to let anyone bully you. Fearful that Song Ke was taking everything the wrong way, Bai Xiaochun reached out and tousled his hair. A-A-A-G-G-G-G-G-G-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H. Song Ke howled, his heart overcome by madness and humiliation at having 8 generations of extremely bad luck heaped upon his head. From the moment he had met Bai Xiaochun to now, his life had been an endless stream of frustration. As he howled, his weak spiritual power and tenuous hold on his emotions caused a stream of blood to spray out of his mouth. Then he flopped down onto the ground, unconscious. He passed out again. Bai Xiaochun murmured, feeling a headache coming on. Big Fatty Zhang stared down at him in shock, puzzled at how poorly Song Ke took a simple joke. Look at how mad you got him, eldest brother. Well, you just carry him on your back for now. Big Fatty Zhang was also scowling on the verge of tears at the strangeness of it all. From what he could remember, Song Ke was definitely not like this. Hoisting Song Ke onto his back, he looked over at Bai Xiaochun. Xiaochun, what did you mean when you said that he passed out, again? He's passed out before in the past? Oh, you have no idea. The poor child was harmed mentally back in the wildlands. Whenever he gets too excited, he passes out. It's fine. He'll wake up in the next 2 or 3 days. Clearing his throat, Bai Xiaochun quickly changed the topic of conversation, and then led the shocked Big Fatty Zhang and Sun Wu off into the distance. As the group flew along through the swamp, 10 days passed by. Soon, they were getting close to the edge of the swamp, beyond which was a vast plain covered by a sky as overcast as the swamps. Although things had remained peaceful and quiet during their journey through the swamp, Bai Xiaochun had not come out without certain gains. In his hand, he held a seed. It was emerald green, and pulsed with a frigid qi that turned his entire hand cold as he held it. The seed had once been a flower, which he had encountered a few days ago. The petals of that flower had resembled moons, and despite being somewhat stunted in appearance, looked very unique growing alone in the middle of a swamp. Upon approaching the flower, Bai Xiaochun had noticed how it seemed to notice him, and then try to shrink down into the ground below. Curious, he had gone closer, which was when he had noticed that the frigid qi emanating from the flower closely resembled the frigid qi that came from cultivating the frigid school while evolving incantation. Surprised, he had expended a bit of effort to dig up the flower. By the time he got to it though, it had shriveled up into a seed. After some study, Bai Xiaochun realized that in the process of blooming, the flower would absorb frigid qi from the surroundings. Unfortunately, there wasn't much frigid qi in the swamp, which had prevented the flower from growing to its full potential. Maybe with enough study, I can put this flower to use in my own cultivation of frigid qi. I think I'll call it a moonflower. With that, he continued to lead his small group along. Along the way, they saw corpses here and there, some from the other 3 rivers, and some from the Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect. The sight of the corpses caused everyone's moods to sink. Song Ke had long since regained consciousness. Originally, his expression had been very grim, but after traveling along and seeing all the corpses, his attitude changed. What kind of trial by fire is this? That same question floated in the minds of everyone present. As for Big Fatty Zhang, Song Ke, and Sun Wu, they knew that without Bai Xiaochun there to protect them, they would all have likely died inside the swamp. Maybe this so-called trial by fire isn't actually about finding an apprentice for the Celestial, but all about that exit. Such were the thoughts of Bai Xiaochun. By now, they had been within the trial by fire for about 2 months. During that time, he had confirmed that ordinary nascent soul cultivators simply could not survive. Even those who were in the Great Circle could only rely on incredible battle prowess and pure luck to pass through any of the 4 main areas. Because of that, Bai Xiaochun was fairly certain that even if the Celestial really wanted an apprentice, it wasn't necessary to pick one via such a deadly trial by fire. That left only one obvious solution to the riddle. The Celestial's true goal is to find that so-called exit. In that case, it would mean that even he doesn't know where it is. And that means that not even the Celestial is truly familiar with the lands in this trial by fire. This supposed trial by fire is merely a casting out of pawns. He's just hoping that if he throws enough people into the mix, someone will find the exit. There must also be some other secret at play here. Otherwise, why would the Celestial make up a story about accepting an apprentice? That was just to trick people into coming. The more Bai Xiaochun analyzed the situation, the more unsightly his expression became. Of course, he also couldn't be certain that his analysis was correct. Either way, the trial by fire was very dangerous. Both the desert and the swamp left him feeling very jumpy. Without his godkiller technique, he would have been in even more danger in the swamp. All of these thoughts got him even more worried about the other people left in the trial by fire. Originally, there had been over 1,000, but now, it was likely that more than half were dead. As for the others, they would surely have come to the realization that the trial was dangerous beyond imagination, and that something fishy was going on. However, such realizations did little good. Clearly, until someone found the exit, everyone would be facing death at every corner. Even the supremely powerful Bai Xiaochun was still feeling a lot of pressure. Although he had calmed the swamp down, he knew that was only on the surface. During his travels, his divine sense had revealed on numerous occasions that there were things hiding in the depths. Such entities didn't reveal any hostility when his divine sense touched them, but he also knew that without his godkiller technique, they would have been deadly threats. What the hell kind of place is this? Even as he pondered the situation, he finally left the swamp and entered the endless plain. Wind scraped across the plain, which seemed to be filled with nothing more than an undulating sea of grass, interspersed with occasional corpses that had been gnawed at by unknown teeth. The sight caused Big Fatty Zhang, Song Ke, and Sun Wu to feel jumpier than ever. From the sight of the few corpses they could see, it was obvious that the plain was a very dangerous place. After flying over the grass for about 10 days, Bai Xiaochun's face suddenly fell. He had just detected a burst of killing intent, something that caused the air to grow cold around him. Backing up, he shouted, "Eldest brother, get everybody out of here. Don't worry about me." As soon as the words left his mouth, a sound like rumbling thunder echoed across the plain, and two huge faces appeared up above in the sky. They belonged to none other than the twin master cloud lightnings. When Bai Xiaochun saw the two enormous faces of the twin master cloud lightnings up in the sky, his heart began to pound. He had already tangled with them more than once in this trial by fire, and now here they were together. It had the potential to be a big problem, and therefore, he immediately sent Sun Wu, Big Fatty Zhang and Song Ke away. "This time, you're dead, Bai Xiaochun," howled the faces up above, their voices echoing like heavenly thunder. Subsequently, one of them shot toward Bai Xiaochun, and the other headed in the direction of Big Fatty Zhang, Sun Wu and Song Ke. Obviously, they didn't just plan to kill Bai Xiaochun, but also the people under his protection. This new development occurred in the time it takes a spark to fly off of a piece of flint. When Bai Xiaochun realized what was happening, his anxiety spiked. Knowing that his three companions would never be able to escape, he swished his sleeve to gather them into his bag of holding. As he did, cold gleams flickered through the eyes of the faces high in the sky. Clearly, their hatred for Bai Xiaochun ran very strong and deep. It didn't matter that Bai Xiaochun had used his godkiller technique on Master Cloud Lightning. Now that his two halves were able to team up, they were more confident and prepared than ever. Therefore, it was without the slightest hesitation that they attacked. The younger brother of the two was adept in matters of speed, so he shot through the air toward Bai Xiaochun. As for the older brother, he was at the peak of the mid-diva realm, and his attack consisted of countless bolts of lightning that transformed into a shocking hand which reached out toward Bai Xiaochun as if to grab him. "Die!" they howled simultaneously. Bai Xiaochun was feeling quite nervous, and could tell that the situation was already very dangerous. There was no time for thought or planning. As he backed up, he performed an incantation gesture with both hands, and then waved them out in front of him. "Water swamp," he shouted. Instantly, water vapor roiled out across the plain, turning it into an enormous swamp. Kingdom. It sounded as if the world were being ripped open. The twin master cloud lightning's faces both flickered. Considering that both of them had fought Bai Xiaochun before, they had assumed that they had already seen all of his techniques. Never could they have imagined that they would encounter another unfamiliar move. Furthermore, the watery swamp around them filled them with a sensation of profound danger. Rumbling sounds echoed out as a row of spikes rose up from below. Mountain toppling, sea-draining force roiled out as the spikes transformed into claws, which were attached to a huge hand. At this point, a shocking howl erupted into the air. The energy shaking the area made the sky quiver, seemingly on the verge of collapse. The twin master cloud lightnings were both stunned. Because of his speed, the younger brother was a bit closer, and bore the initial brunt of the blow. Blood sprayed from his mouth as he was sent tumbling backward. Meanwhile, the other half of Master Cloud Lightning went all out with his lightning attack. In the blink of an eye, his lightning hand made contact with the claws. The sky shook and the lands quaked as the lightning palm shattered in the face of the all-powerful Water Swamp Kingdom's claws. However, this opponent of Bai Xiaochun's surpassed Chen Hechan and the other devas he had fought in the Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect. Therefore, the Water Swamp Kingdom rapidly faded away. As it did, Bai Xiaochun retreated with lightning speed. After all, he knew that he would never be able to win against the combined force of both Master Cloud Lightnings, especially considering that he couldn't control his godkiller. Taking advantage of the moments in which the Water Swamp Kingdom was still fading away, Bai Xiaochun fled, and was soon heading toward the horizon. "Now we'll make him enjoy the bitterness of being chased." The twin Master Cloud Lightnings gritted their teeth. Eyes shining with killing intent, they became bright beams of light that shot after Bai Xiaochun, thunderous sound waves rolling off of them in all directions. From a distance, it almost looked like they had combined with each other, but closer examination would reveal that the process was not complete yet. However, even their current level enabled them to surpass the limits of the mid-diva realm, and achieve speed comparable to the late realm. What made Bai Xiaochun even more nervous was that the twin master cloud lightnings were continuing to merge together, and as they did, the resulting aura contained power that caused his scalp to tingle with fear. What complete bullying! They bullied me in the staring contest, but couldn't beat me in a fight, so now they're ganging up. The Nine Heavens Cloud Lightning sect is full of bullies. Heart-pounding, he called upon the undying hex for a burst of speed. Behind him, rumbling sounds echoed out as the twin master cloud lightnings continued to merge, and also send attacks his way. From a distance, it was possible to see lightning bolts slamming repeatedly into Bai Xiaochun, with the resulting explosions sending black smoke billowing out around him, which would reduce his speed. And with every moment that passed, the twin master cloud lightnings got closer. Feeling very nervous, Bai Xiaochun called out, fellow Taoists cloud lightning, don't push things too far, okay? I have a trump card designed specifically for you too. Even I'm afraid of what will happen if I use it." The twin master cloud lightnings snorted coldly and continued to close in, their murderous auras raging. Bai Xiaochun was a blur as he used his mountain-shaking bash to avoid the lightning attacks, and the undying hex to buy speed. Unfortunately, his anxiety only continued to mount. When he had used the Water Swamp Kingdom moments ago, he had clearly seen how incredibly powerful the twin master cloud lightnings would be if they fully combined. And that was now happening as he watched. I can't let things go on like this. I need to prevent them from combining. Damnation. What technique can actually split a person in two? I need to prevent them from getting together. I need to split them up. Hey, in that critical moment, an idea struck him without any warning. Split them up? He thought excitedly. Maintaining full speed, he secretly pulled out a breakup pill and at the same time, produced his flying shuttle. After using a secret magic to conceal the pill inside the shuttle, he hurled it back at the twin master cloud lightnings. Fellow Taoists cloud lightning, that's your flying shuttle, right? I randomly happened across it a while back, and based on the aura, I can tell it's yours. Alright, just take it back. Both of the twin master cloud lightnings were visibly taken aback by his words. Never could they have imagined that Bai Xiaochun, who had previously acted so imperious and disdainful, would go and say something like this. However, before they could do anything other than be surprised, Bai Xiaochun performed an incantation gesture and shouted, "Detonate." The flying shuttle exploded, sending out a shockwave that completely enveloped the twin master cloud lightnings. The detonation also burst the breakup pill, sending a black mist roiling out in all directions. Bai Xiaochun didn't bother to even look back at the result, and simply picked up more speed. As he did, a violet bolt of lightning shot out from the black mist and the fragments of the flying shuttle. That lightning bolt was none other than the twin master cloud lightnings, their expressions unsightly and their murderous auras boiling. A hidden poison pill? You think trash like that can hurt me? In my combined state, I'm impervious to all poisons. Both of the twin master cloud lightnings spoke at the same time, their voices combining in bizarre fashion. It was at this point that Bai Xiaochun realized there were soul fluctuations within the voice that gave a bit of insight into the twin master cloud lightning's current state. Clearly, they were not yet fully combined, and needed more time to complete the process. The breakup pill didn't work, he thought, disappointed. Don't tell me that it only works between men and women? Or was the dose too weak? He considered turning to fight, but also had the feeling that if there were any major weaknesses because of their partially combined state, the twin master cloud lightnings wouldn't be pursuing him so aggressively. They must be trying to trick me, he thought. Not willing to risk it, he gritted his teeth and continued onward. The twin master cloud lightnings frowned and exchanged a glance. Yet again, they found Bai Xiaochun's behavior to be incongruous. In their estimation, the fact that the combining process was not complete should have prompted Bai Xiaochun to turn and fight. Of course, the truth was that they could finish combining with each other at any time they wished. The only downside was that their combined state would only last for a short time. Therefore, they hoped to wait until close quarters fighting actually broke out before starting the clock. It doesn't matter if this Bai Xiaochun is clever. He's going to die beyond the shadow of a doubt. Snorting coldly, the twin master cloud lightnings picked up speed and began to close the distance. And thus the true chase began. The day passed, then the night. Bai Xiaochun had a powerful fleshly body and incredible restorative powers. Therefore, he could maintain top speed for a long time. Occasionally, he would toss out some breakup pills, although it wasn't possible for him to hit Master Cloud Lightning directly. Fudge. I refuse to believe that my breakup pills aren't working. Unwilling to accept defeat, he continued to throw out pills. After all this running, he's still got energy left? The twin master cloud lightnings both frowned at the sight of Bai Xiaochun fleeing. We can't stretch things out any longer. Taking a deep breath, they decided that now was the time to finish combining their two halves. However, it was also in that moment that their expressions flickered, and they looked up into the sky. Bai Xiaochun sensed the same thing they had. Gasping for breath, he turned back to see that an enormous face had taken shape up above, surrounded by so much swirling black mist that it was difficult to make out its facial features. However, it was profoundly sinister as it looked at the three other devas. Master Thousand Ghost, the twin master cloud lightnings exclaimed. However, they didn't slow down in their pursuit of Bai Xiaochun. This newly arrived diva was none other than Master Thousand Ghost, who had been searching for other southern cultivators on the vast plain. After detecting the fluctuations of battle, he had sent his divine sense over to see what was happening. Now that he had assessed the situation, he decided to continue on with his own affairs. As far as he was concerned, friction between the Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect and the Nine Heavens Cloud Lightning sect had nothing to do with him. Almost as soon as it appeared, his face began to fade away. Seeing that Master Thousand Ghost was leaving caused the twin Master Cloud Lightnings to both breathe sighs of relief. After all, if Master Thousand Ghost interfered, it could very well make it impossible for them to get to Bai Xiaochun. However, it was in that moment that Bai Xiaochun's eyes lit up, and he cried, "Hold on a moment, fellow Taoist Thousand Ghost. There's a chosen from the south named Sun Wu, right?" When Master Thousand Ghost heard that, he stopped in place. Then, mysterious, sinister light shone in the eyes of his huge face as he turned to look at Bai Xiaochun again. Bai Xiaochun immediately slapped his bag of holding, pulling Sun Wu, Big Fatty Zhang and Song Ke out into the open. "Fellow Taoist Thousand Ghost, your disciple Sun Wu was in big trouble, and I rescued him. Doesn't that mean the Dragon Totem Ghost C sect owes me a favor?" Master Thousand Ghost was taken aback. Sun Wu was indeed a chosen from the southern river, and if Bai Xiaochun had rescued him, it meant that the south truly did owe him a favor. At any other time, Master Thousand Ghost would have immediately nodded in agreement. However, he could see that the twin Master Cloud Lightnings were just about to combine forms. Considering the weakened state Bai Xiaochun was obviously in, even if he joined forces with him, the two of them would still not be a match for Master Cloud Lightning. And thus, he hesitated. In that moment of hesitation, the twin Master Cloud Lightning's faces fell, and they both cried out, "Master Thousand Ghost. This is a personal issue between us and Bai Xiaochun. Please refrain from interfering, and we will give you a wonderful gift after everything is over." In response, Master Thousand Ghost's eyes flashed with determination. Waving his right hand, he pulled Sun Wu away, along with Big Fatty Zhang and Song Ke. At the same time, his voice echoed out, as bizarre and mysterious as an evil ghost. "Fellow Taoist Bai, you saved Sun Wu, and I will repay you by saving these two disciples from your sect. In fact, not only will I save them, I will ensure that they leave this trial by fire in safety." Bai Xiaochun smiled bitterly in response. However, he had known that Master Thousand Ghost would not just interfere without good reason. And for him to have offered to save Big Fatty Zhang and Song Ke left Bai Xiaochun feeling a bit more at ease. Flicking his sleeve, he quickly transmitted an explanation to Big Fatty Zhang and Song Ke. And thus, the three lower-level disciples were all whisked away by Master Thousand Ghost. It only took a moment for Master Thousand Ghost to be far away in the distance. At that point, the eyes of the twin Master Cloud Lightnings flashed with cold light, and they proceeded with their earlier plan of completing the process of combining. The withered sides of their two halves merged together, and in the briefest of moments, they became a single person. In that moment, a burst of energy swept out in all directions, creating a shocking windstorm. A 3,000-meter-wide tempest ravaged heaven and earth as, at its very center, a man appeared, tall and burly, like an immortal devil. His eyes flickered with anger as his black hair whipped about. There was something netherworldly about him now, something indescribably monstrous. Rifts were torn open into the air around him, as though it couldn't handle the pressure radiating off of him. The slightest movement of his hand would cause thunderous rumbling sounds, and his will was so powerful that it was already beginning to drive Bai Xiaochun's will away. He was strong. Very, very strong. Bai Xiaochun could clearly sense that the combined Master Cloud Lightning's cultivation base far surpassed the mid-diva realm. It was in the late realm, and in fact, very close to the Great Circle. Feeling deeply shaken, Bai Xiaochun began to back up. However, that was when the combined Master Cloud Lightning looked over at him with a derisive smile. Then he took a step forward, a step which seemed to bend space, instantly bringing him directly next to Bai Xiaochun, where he waved his hand. That casual motion sent out terrifyingly destructive power in the form of a black spark of electricity. Bai Xiaochun's scalp tingled in terror, and all of his flesh seemed to be screaming along with it. Without any hesitation, he performed an incantation gesture to send out a defensive blast of energy. A huge boom rang out as he flopped backward like a kite with its string cut, blood oozing out of the corners of his mouth. He flew more than 3,000 meters away before finally grinding to a halt. I can't believe this guy got so powerful after combining his two halves. Bai Xiaochun thought, if it weren't for his incredible fleshly body power, he would have already been torn to pieces. All of a sudden, he realized that it was a really good thing he had only tried to use breakup pills and not aphrodisiac pills. That would have been far too dangerous. Before Bai Xiaochun could even stand up straight, Master Cloud Lightning's voice echoed out, as cold as the dead of winter. I said you'll die this day, Bai Xiaochun. And that means you won't have a chance to see the light of tomorrow. With that, Master Cloud Lightning took another step forward and was just about to unleash another attack when, all of a sudden, his face fell, and a second, unique voice spoke from his mouth. Brother, I don't think the two of us are meant for each other. We'll never be happy if we forcibly try to stick together. A spasm ran through Master Cloud Lightning's perfectly combined body. Unexpectedly, a second version of himself suddenly appeared. Apparently, the younger of the twin Master Cloud Lightnings wasn't willing to remain in a combined state. A look of shock and horror overtook Master Cloud Lightning's face, combined with an expression of intense disbelief. What's going on? Nothing like this had ever happened to Master Cloud Lightning. It was as if there were two different consciousnesses within him that were rejecting each other. His aura was destabilizing, and seemed like it might collapse at any moment. Even worse, his left hand began to struggle with his right hand. Bai Xiaochun was overjoyed, and if it weren't for the intense fear which still gripped his heart, he would have begun to dance wildly. The breakup pills are finally working. Even as Master Cloud Lightning began to split apart, Bai Xiaochun howled, causing an enormous, shadowy figure to appear behind him. The figure wore an imperial crown and imperial robes, and exuded the most domineering of airs. Bai Xiaochun clenched his hand into a fist, causing a black hole to appear that sucked in all of his life force, making him seem almost like he was dead. However, the intense fluctuations that rolled off of his fist caused the air to distort with destructive power. Ripples spread out over the plain, crushing the grass flat as a fist appeared. Undying Emperor's Fist. Quintuple power. Bai Xiaochun began to thrum with incredible energy as the shadowy emperor behind him merged with his fist, which then shot directly toward Master Cloud Lightning. In that critical moment, Master Cloud Lightning's heart pounded like mad. As the two consciousnesses within him struggled, Bai Xiaochun's fist strike approached. Any advantage Master Cloud Lightning had seized earlier was now gone, and it had happened so fast that he didn't have any time to contemplate how to respond. However, he was a veteran of many battles, and thus wasn't caught completely off guard. Crackling sounds could be heard, like that from a fire. Master Cloud Lightning's hair then turned white as he burned his longevity to temporarily negate the effects of the breakup pills. Cloud Lightning Forefather, 6th Transformation. Cloud Lightning Forefather, 7th Transformation. Cloud Lightning Forefather, 8th Transformation. Master Cloud Lightning's energy suddenly surged in heaven-shaking, earth-shattering fashion. He rapidly grew larger, until he was 240 meters tall, with a savage aura that made it truly seem as if the forefather of all humanity had appeared in the flesh. He was burly and broad-shouldered, with wild, disheveled hair, and eyes that shone with madness. The sky trembled above, and the vast plain quaked around him. As of this moment, he had surpassed the will of the heavens, and was an embodiment of magical laws. Be destroyed, he shouted, his voice crackling like heavenly thunder. Thus, this episode comes to an end. Remember to like and comment so we can discuss the story together. Until we meet again in the next chapters.